Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Mancha kalpa turubhya ashta kripasindubhya bacha patitanam pavanebha vaishnavabho namo namaha Om Ajnana Timananda Shagyananjana Shalakaya Chakshushoonmiladam Yen Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharni Nirvishesha Shanvadi Pashtata Deshtani. Welcome back to the Bhaktisastri course. In our previous lesson, we were discussing the first 12 verses of chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge, Rajaguyam, devotional service, Krishna's relationship with the material world in verses 4 to 10, and Krishna's evaluation of those who deride him when he descends in the human form, Mamudha. We will conclude the 9th chapter in this session. Let's take a look at a bit of an overview of the 9th chapter, see what's going on. Raja Vidya we've discussed, Krishna's relationship with the material world. The impersonalists are minimized in verses 11 to 12. Mahatmas and 3 other kinds of worshippers we'll be discussing shortly. Demigod worship minimized in verses 20 to 25. And Ananda Bhakti Yoga, verses 26 to 34. In text number 13, Krishna explains, Mahatmanastumam partha daivim prakritim ashritaha bhajanti ananna manasa gyatva bhutaharim avyayam. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. So those who are not deluded is comparing to those who are deluded in text 12. Mogasha, mogakamasha, mogagyana vicheshtashaha. Rakshashim asharim chaiva prakritim mohinim ashritaha. They are prakritim mohinim ashritaha, taking shelter of the material energy. Rakshashim asharim, Prabhupada explains, they are the demoniac and atheistic views. Mogasha, mogakarmana, mogasha, their desires are thwarted. Mogakarmano, their activity is, their fruitive activities are fraud. Mogagyana, and even their knowledge. So those who are not understanding the Parambhavam, the supreme transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord, are described in this verse. And then again, in comparison, Prabhupada's explaining those who are not deluded, Mahatmas, the great souls, are under Devim Prakritim Ashritaha, under the protection of the divine nature. Devim Prakritim Ashritaha, we can say, and text number 14, Satatam Kirtayantam Mam Yatantascha Drida Abrataha Namashantascha Mam Bhaktya Nitya Jukta Upashite. Just by examining the example of Srila Prabhupada's life, we can see so clearly the symptoms of a Mahatma. Devim Prakritim Ashritaha. Prabhupada is so absorbed in the divine energy and taking shelter of the divine energy, absorbed in fulfilling the order of the spiritual master, dedicated his life to that complete conviction that the order of the spiritual master can be achieved, complete shelter of the spiritual energy. Bhajanti ananda manasa, Prabhupada's conviction, Prabhupada's focus on the service and the worship of Lord Sri Hari is so exalted. Gyatva bhudarim avyayam. Prabhupada was so expert in every field. He was able to deal with scientists, he was able to deal with politicians, he was able to deal with humanists, he was able to deal with different religionists. Every type of person Prabhupada was so expert in dealing with, because gyadva bhudarim avyayam, he realized that Krishna was the source of everything. In this connection, Prabhupada once gave an analogy that if you know 0 to 9, there's not many numbers, 0 to 9, count on 2 hands. If you know 0 to 9 and the meaning, the significance of 0 to 9, then you know everything. I remember when we were in primary school, we were learning how to count. I remember learning 0 to 9. We used blocks. There were different blocks, and they were different colors. I think 2 was red, it was about that big. And 3 was yellow, a little bit bigger. 4 was twice as long, and that was blue. And in this way, that's actually called kinesthetic learning. By feeling the object, we could understand that 4 is twice as big as 2. Anyway, we had little blocks that got all the way to 9. And I still remember that, a very brilliant learning resource. So we understand the concepts. 9, 3 times 3 is 9, 2 times 4 is 8, 5 and 2 is 7. You get those concepts basically situated in your head. Prabhupada explains if you know 0 to 9, you know all mathematics, because basically all arithmetic, permutations, combinations, algebra, everything is simply different arrangements of 0 to 9. So in this way, Prabhupada gave the example that when you know Gyatva Bhutani Avyayam, when you know Krishna is the source of everything, then you know everything. And Prabhupada was so expert in dealing with every type of person in every situation, because he knew that Krishna was the underlying principle behind everything. Satatam Kirtayanto Mam, constantly chanting the holy name. Prabhupada, what an example of Satatam Kirtayanto Mam. Chanting Hare Krishna, constantly glorifying Krishna, constantly discussing the spreading of Krishna's mission, writing books, constantly absorbed in Krishna Kirtan, without interruption. Yatantascha Drida Brataha, here we are in Sisirada Rashbi Hari Mundir. ISKCON Juhu. What an example of determination. Even when such greatly empowered assistants and delegated preachers of Prabhupada's mission, they gave up hope. No, it's impossible. We'll just start afresh, go somewhere else. Prabhupada was so determined to acquire this land in ISKCON Juhu and build a beautiful temple for Sri Sri Radha Rashbihari. What determination. Irrevocable, unbreakable determination. Yutantascha, endeavor and determination to serve the Lord. Nitya Jukta Upashate, entire life of service to Lord Hari. I spend quite regular time in Kolkata, residing in Sridham Mayapur. I regularly visit Kolkata, and oftentimes when we're near Howrah Bridge, we reflect on Prabhupada's childhood. From the young age, 5, 6 years old, Prabhupada was organising preaching, the Rath Yatra, and such a nice leela there described how he went to the market, was unable to find the Rath Yatra cart. There was carts there, but so expensive. And then just one Bengali lady happened to meet and say, "Oh, I have an old Rath Yatra cart. You can take that." She was perhaps some demigod, Devata, a Devi who appeared just to participate in Prabhupada leela. And so Gaura Mohan, he purchased that old cart, and then Prabhupada, they personally. Gaura Mohan, they hired a carpenter and they repaired that cart. Nitya Jukta Upashate, organising the preaching, and whole life, Prabhupada. Always meditating and worshipping Lord Hari. And then unto his last breath, worshipping the Lord and following the order of Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Nitya Jukta Upashate, Prabhupada, constantly, eternally engaged in the service of Lord Hari. What an example of a Mahatma. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Prabhupada's commenting in the purport to text 13. As described in the second verse of this chapter, not only is this devotional service easy, but it can be performed in a happy mood. One does not need to undergo severe penance and austerity. He can live this life in devotional service, guided by an expert spiritual master, and in any position, either as a householder, or a sannyasi, or a brahmachari, in any position and anywhere in the world, he can perform this devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus become actually a Mahatma, a great soul. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. In verses 15 to 19, Krishna goes on to explain other categories of aspiring transcendentalists who are not actually in the category of Mahatma. Now, those who are directly worshipping the Supreme Lord, Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, they've been described as Mahatma, and there are others, worshippers, they cannot conceive of the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly on account of being less advanced. Therefore, they have been described here as Ane, others. So others, they worship the absolute truth in these 3 different ways. They're not completely rejected, the others. They're others. They're not in the first class category of the Ananda Bhakti. Ananda Bhakta, Mahatma. But there are others who are also on the path, and they're described in three categories. Ekadvaina, the monists who worship self, the self as one with the Lord. They're described in verses 11 to 12. Vishvatomukam, the worshippers of the universal form. They're described in verses 16 to 19. And Pritakvena Bahuda, those who are concocting different forms of God, or also those who are Bahuda, worshipping the different forms of the demigods. They're described in verses 20 to 25. Regarding the Vishvato Mukam, the worshippers of the universal form, it's interesting to note that in verses 17 and 18, verse 16, Aham Kratur, Aham Jagyai Svadaham, Aham Ushadam, Mantroham, Aham Evajam, Aham Agni, Aham Hutam. I am the ritual, I am the sacrifice, I am the offering to the ancestors, the healing herb, the transcendental chant, I am the butter, I am the fire, I am the offering. I am the father of the universe, the mother, the support, and the grandsire. I am the object of knowledge, the purifier, and the syllable Om. I am the Rig, Sama, and Yajur Vedas. I am the goal, the sustainer, the master, the witness, the abode, the refuge, the most dear friend. I am the creation and the annihilation, the basis of everything, the resting place, and the eternal seed. Now, in the purports to text 17 and 18, Prabhupada mentions the name Krishna 38 times. Just for your information. Anye. Anye means others. So they have not been given so much importance, although they have been accepted. They are also accepted because they have taken into the line. They are better than those who are just like animals, simply eating, sleeping, and defending and mating. Now, Krishna again further analyzes the topic of demigod worship. And in this 9th chapter, which is the Rajaguhya, the most confidential knowledge, we'll see that Krishna, his evaluation of deity worship is much deeper than what we saw in chapter 3 and chapter 7. This is the most confidential teachings that Krishna is presenting on demigod worship. And let us discuss these. In chapter 3, actually, Krishna was recommending demigod worship. Agaya Indriya Rama Moga Parta Sajiviti. If you're not involved in the Evam Pravatitam Chakram, the cycle of performing sacrifice and then acquiring the various requirements of the natural elements and the minerals and the sun and the water, all of these things which are provided by the demigods, one utilizes for prosperity, and one has to perform sacrifice from all of those goods that are provided, all those facilities. Just as in the same way, living in the city, we are provided with so much facility, we're running water, electricity, even to use the highways, you have to pay tax, you have to pay road tax, you have to pay for the water, you have to pay for the electricity. If you stop paying, then after some time they will cut the supply. So similarly, one is obliged to worship the demigods, and in that way one can live happily in this world. Krishna is explaining that in the 3rd chapter, Karma Yoga, Shreya Swadharma. One has to perform his Varnashram Dharma, one has to perform the prescribed sacrifices, and in this way he can enjoy prosperity in life. Now in the 7th chapter, Krishna explains that those who are worshipping the demigods are less intelligent. Antavattu palam tesham tapdavati alpamedasham. Because the boons that the demigods are providing are temporary, and actually mayaiva vihitam hitam. Those boons are simply provided under the authorization of the Supreme Lord. Tasya tasya chalam shradham tam eva vididhamyaham. And the Lord is also providing the steady faith that the demigod worshipper has in worshipping the demigod. But therefore, those who are less intelligent worship the demigods, and the result is not the same. Deva yujo yanti mad bhakti yanti mamapi. Clear distinction. Worship of the demigods will keep you in the material world, even though you may be elevated to a higher status. Devan mad bhakta yanti mamapi, and worship of the Supreme Lord Hari will take you to the transcendental realm. Now in the 9th chapter, Krishna explains that in the Rajaguhya section of Bhagavad Gita, that yajanti aviti purva. The worship of the demigods is full of mistakes and it is performed in the wrong way. Prabhupada is explaining in lecturing in 1966 on the topic, worship demigods may be accepted if people know that these demigods are authorized agents of the Supreme Lord. There is acceptance of the Supreme Lord, but those fools who do not accept the Supreme God and misunderstand this particular type of demigod is all in all, they are doing nonsense. They are placing so many competitors of the Supreme Lord. That is avidi purvakam. That is illegal. Nobody can be competitor of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is asam urdva. No one is greater than the Supreme Lord. No one is equal. Oftentimes you see in different places the Sanatan Dharma temples, and all the deities are there, and all the deities are placed on the equal platform, and in this way the priests are attracting so many devotees. Yes, we have your deity, yes, we have. But this is avidi purva. This is not the correct way of worshipping the Supreme Lord, because He is, no one can be compared, or no one can be considered to be equal to the Supreme Lord. Prabhupada, in texts 20 and 21, 23, he gives some analogies. Text 21, Tetam bhunktva svagalokam vishalam kshinei punya ma chalokam vishanti evam trayi dharma anuprabhanam gatagata kama kama labante. When they have thus enjoyed vast heavenly sense pleasures, and the results of their pious activities are exhausted, they return to the mortal planet again. Those who seek sense enjoyment by adhering to the principles of the three Vedas achieve only repeated birth and death. Krishna again clearly giving distinction between the worship of demigods and the worship of himself. Gatagata kama labala. Gatagatam kama kama labante. Evam trayidharmam. Even following the principles of the three Vedas, worship of the demigods, still they achieve only repeated birth and death. In the purport, Prabhupada gives an analogy of the Ferris wheel. The Ferris wheel goes up. So you practice it worshipping demigods, you can attain all sorts of punya, and you can enjoy bhunktva svagalokam vishalam for a long time, bhunktva svagalokam on the heavenly planets. But the credits that were acquired through worship of the demigods, kshinei, they're exhausted. Kshinei punya marchalokam vishanti, and one returns again to the material world. In that way, actually all the effort that one is placing into the worship of the demigods ultimately becomes fruitless. Mahaprabhu also in his teachings to Rupa Goswami explains, Brahmanda Brahmate, Brahmanda Brahmate. This Brahmando, Brahmate, we're wandering in this material world, sometimes going up, sometimes going up, sometimes going up. Heavenly planets and sometimes hellish planets. Kona Bhagavana Jeev, some fortunate soul. Kona Bhagavan. Of course, in Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement, anyone can become fortunate, whether you're pious or impious. Kono, Jekono, anyone. Bhagavan. Guru Krishna Kripa, by the mercy of Krishna and the spiritual master, one can get the seed of devotional service. So we're wandering in this material world, and worship of the demigods ultimately is of no real benefit for the progressive development of the spiritual life of the living entity. And text 23, Yapi Anya Devata Bhakta Yujante Shraddhayan Vitaha. Anya Devata Bhakta, those who are devotees of other Devata, demigods. Yujante Shraddhayan Vitaha, and who are worshipping them with great faith. That'll also be described in the 11th chapter, in the 17th chapter when we reach the 17th chapter, divisions of faith. They may have great faith, but that faith may be mixed, maybe is influenced by the modes of material nature, and will not help one on the spiritual path, even though they have great faith. Yajante Shraddhayan Vitaha Tapimam Evakunteya Yajanti Avidi Purvakam. They're actually worshipping me alone, but in the wrong way. In this purport, Prabhupada gives several very useful analogies. He's explaining that watering the yata talamula nashetanena tripyanti tatskanda bhuja prashakaha. By watering the root, one automatically, tripyanti, one satisfies the skanda, the trunk, the branches, and the upashaka, the twigs. They're all nourished very easily by watering the root. If you independently water each twig, each leaf, actually the tree will dry up. So this is the analogy of worshipping the demigods and not worshipping the Supreme Lord. And similarly, by feeding the stomach, one automatically satisfies all the senses. Pranopahachaya tendriyanam. By feeding the stomach, all of the senses become satisfied. Another analogy that Srila Prabhupada gives here is the bribe. That worshipping demigods is like paying a bribe to the government officers. You can get some benefit, but ultimately you're simply avoiding the actual prerogative and real responsibility of the living entity to surrender to the will of the Supreme, the government, and those who are properly following the laws of the government. No need for them to pay bribes. So this is avidi purva. This is the wrong way. Krishna here is clearly declaring in the Rajaguja that he's not accepting, not appreciating, not recommending the worship of demigods. It is done in the wrong way. It is avidi purva. It is full of mistakes. And very important verse which Srila Prabhupada regularly quotes, once again indicating the distinction between the worship of the demigods and worship of the Supreme Lord Hari. Janti deva brata devan pitrin janti pitri brataha bhutani yanti bhuteja janti mat yajinopimam. Those who worship the demigods take birth among the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors go to the ancestors. And those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings. And those who worship me will live with me. Prabhupada's commenting, Krishna says, Janti deva prata devan. How you nonsense say that everyone goes to God? This is nonsense. You can go to Shiva, you can go to Indra, you can go, there are so many planets and you'll go there. And that is reasonable. And how do you say, whatever ticket I purchase, I will go to this Delhi? Even Prabhupada, he's of course describing buying a train ticket, but now everyone's flying Indigo, jet. You go Indigo, the departure lounge, so many you'll see, one after another, Coimbatore, Chennai, Delhi, Mumbai. You roll up to the Mumbai with your Delhi ticket, not possible. It's a very wonderful analogy Prabhupada gives. Therefore, they are nonsense mudha rascals. But this is the propagation that is still very popular in India, in Bengal particularly. Jotamat, totapat. Every path will lead to the same. This is rascaldom. Mudhas, rascals. They do not know what is God, what is demigod, what is Lord Shiva, what is Lord Vishnu or Brahma. They do not know. If a woman says, oh, everyone is my husband, then she is a prostitute. That's all. Prabhupada ki jai. Let's have a look at what's going on in the 9th chapter up to this point. Rajavijja, Krishna's relationship with the material world, impersonalists, minimized Mahatma, and other kinds of worshippers. Demigod worship, also Krishna is very emphatic in his analysis in this chapter. And now texts 26 to 34 are explaining Ananda Bhakti Yoga, unalloyed pure devotional service. Ananda Chintayantamam, Yejana Payupashate. Those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, Tesham Nitta Abhijuktanam. Meditating on my transcendental form, Nitta, constantly, Jogakshemam Vahamyaham. For them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. Here we're entering into the sublime Rajaguya, most confidential teachings of Bhagavad Gita, the very heart of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is explaining here how he becomes particularly inclined to the devotee who's practicing Ananda Bhakti. Ananda Chintayantamam, constantly worshipping me, constantly thinking about me, concentrating, Prabhupada says. Yejana Paryupashate, those who worship, Jejan Paryupa, those who worship me in that way, Tesham Nitta Abhijuktanam, constantly engaged in serving me. I provide everything that they have. The devotee, he forgets his own material circumstances, being absorbed in the service of the Lord. And Krishna, he provides everything that the devotee requires. Everything that the devotee has, he protects, and whatever the devotee requires, he provides. There's an interesting story that you'll find in Bhujan Prabhu's narration of the Surrender Unto Me, where he describes Arjuna Charja. He thought it was a mistake. Ahami, I personally take the burden for my devotee. He thought that was a mistake, he crossed it out. And then went off to the market. And then a bluish boy and a beautiful white colored boy came and provided so many goods to his wife, so many from the market. And as they were leaving, they showed them the whip marks on their backs, and they said, Arjuna Acharya, he forced us to bring this. Whoa, that cruel Arjuna Acharya. Mataji was very upset. She fed the boys. And she also took prasad, being dissatisfied with her husband. When he came back, she said, what is this, Devi? You are taking? Oh, why are you there? You beat those innocent boys? Well, what innocent boys? Yeah, they came. Look, they brought so many things from the market. They said you forced them. They said you beat them. I never saw any boys. What were they like? One beautiful, bluish, one whitish, beautiful. And Arjuna Acharya realized that in order to confirm his statement in Bhagavad Gita, he personally came and he adjusted his commentary. He'd scratched it out, the word Vahami. I again put it back. Krishna personally takes interest in his devotee, because the devotee is so much absorbed in serving and loving him. And the devotional process is so easy, so easy. Krishna is so easily satisfied. Patram pushpam palam, text 26. Patram pushpam palam toyam. Yomi bhakta prayachati. Just the devotion is what he's interested in. If you offer me with love and devotion a leaf, a fruit, a flower, or water. Tadaham bhakti paridam ashnami prayatatmanaham. Prabhupada's explaining how it's very easy to serve Lord Hari. And he's reciprocating with the loving mood of the devotee. Even though he's not hungry, he's the proprietor of everything. He will eat, ashnami. He eats because he's obligated to reciprocate with the devotee's loving intention. In this way, the glories of pure devotional service are enunciated by Krishna in these verses. Yat koroshi, whatever you do, yat ashnashi, whatever you eat, yat johoshtidasyat, whatever austerity you perform, whatever you offer and give away, yat tapasyasi kuntaya, whatever austerity you perform, tat kurusha madarpanam, you do that for me, you offer that to me. Subha shubha palameva, in this way, the shubha ashubha, the auspicious and inauspicious results of work, moksha karma bandhanat, you are delivered from sanyasha yoga juktatma. In this way, being situated in Krishna consciousness, vimukta mama pashyati, you will attain me. Krishna is explaining his special affection and consideration for the devotee engaged in ananda bhakti. Samaham sarva bhuteshu, I'm equal to all living entities. Name dvesha asti na priya. I'm not particularly inclined nor averse to any living entity. But, jai bhajanti tu. Tu means kintu, means but. Ye bhajanti tu, mam bhakta, those who worship me, who serve me, bhajanti, who serve me with devotion. Mayi te, they're in me, te shu chapi aham, and I become a friend to them. In the purport, Prabhupada is explaining how the devotee is like a gold ring and the Lord is like a diamond, and they simultaneously enhance each other. The relationship between Krishna and his devotee is very sublime. He becomes a friend. He becomes a friend. Just as the devotee is, in the 7th chapter, Prabhupada quoted the verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Mad anyat te na janati, mad anyat, besides me, te na janati, they're not interested in anything. Naham tebyo managapi. And similarly, reciprocally, I am not interested in anything else apart from them. In this way, Krishna, his only business is to fully focus on and reciprocate with the love of his devotee. Ami bina bandhu ada uke ache tomara. Thakur Bhaktivinoda is describing the mood of Sri Gaurasunda. Ami bina, besides me, bandhu ada uke ache tomara. You have no other friend apart from me. And the extent to which Krishna can reciprocate with his devotee is so sublime. Rasha Shekha. He is the most personal. He is the most equipped to reciprocate with the devotee in any way that the devotee desires to worship and love him. Krishna is carrying on even more confidential principles, that the special facilities that he provides for his Ananda Bhakta, abhichet sudurachara, even if one performs most abominable, sudurachara activity. Bhajate mam ananda bhak. If he carries on with ananda bhakti, with worshipping me, loving me, as prescribed in the system of Rupa Goswami, how to practice loving devotional service to the Lord. And chanting His name, offering, bowing down, seeing the Lord, hearing about the Lord. The principal activities of Bhagavad Bhakti are hearing and chanting, glorifying the Lord, hearing the Lord, chanting the holy name. If he carries on in the devotional practice, even though, as Prabhupada explains, in the unpremeditated circumstances due to previous habits, if one shu durachara is induced to perform most abominable activity, sadur eva samantabhya, Krishna considers him holy and saintly, samyak bhyavasito hisa, because he's firmly engaged in his determination to carry on and serve the Lord. Kshipram bhavati dharamatya kshanktim nagachati. Quickly, as a result of his bhajanti ananda, as a result of his bhajate mamananda, carrying on with the process of devotional service, kshipram bhavati dharma, he quickly becomes righteous, and those inebrities will be removed from his character. Shasha shantim nagachati, and he attains lasting peace. Konteya pratijanihi nami bhakti pranashati. Also interesting to note here that Konteya pratijanihi, that Krishna is declaring, Arjuna, you declare it boldly, because as we saw from the Leela of Bhishmadev and Krishna in Mahabharata, that Krishna is more concerned with maintaining the words of his devotee than even his own words. So when Bhishmadev informed Duryodhana that tomorrow I will kill those 5 Pandavas, and here are the special 5 arrows that I will reserve for them, unless Krishna himself breaks his own promise to intervene in the battle, I will destroy all of the 5 Pandavas. And Krishna was there, Arjuna on the chariot. You see the beautiful picture. Bhishmadev was fighting so ferociously that Arjuna almost gave up his life. And then Krishna, seeing the predicament, he personally got down from the chariot, picked up the broken wheel, and running toward Bhishmadev, and showed him, are you satisfied now? You stop this. Are you satisfied now? I've broken my promise. Are you satisfied? And Bhishmadev, seeing this, he was so overwhelmed with love. And he was ready. And then the day ended. And later in Srimad Bhagavatam, describing the departure of Sri Bhishmadev, he's meditating on this moment. Actually, our acharyas described that Bhishmadev was in a more fortunate situation, because Arjuna was seeing Krishna from behind, but Bhishmadev was seeing the beautiful face with the ash that had covered the body of the Lord, and the perspiration, drops of perspiration, and also spots of blood where he had also been attacked by Bhishmadev's weapons. And out of love for Arjuna, he was breaking his own promise and maintaining Bhishmadev's promise that unless Krishna personally intervene, I will kill the Pandavas. So in this way here, Krishna is declaring, Arjuna, you declare it boldly, because Krishna becomes more interested in maintaining the statements of his devotees than even maintaining his own promises. Mam hi pata vipascha JP Shu Papa Yonaya. JP Shu, if you take shelter of me, JP Shu Papa Yoni, even those, her sinful background, even Striya, even the women, Vaishya, the mercantile class, even the Shudras, Yepi Yanti Param Gatim. They can also practice Ananda Bhakti, and they can also attain the supreme destination. King Puna Brahmana Punna Bhakta Raja Shayastra. What to speak of the Brahmins, the devotees, and the kings. Anitam Ashukam Lokam Imam Prapya Bhajashvamam. Having come to this temporary miserable world, engage in loving service to me. And then the concluding verse of the 9th chapter, which we find right in the heart of Bhagavad Gita, right in the center of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna's ultimate order to the living entities and inspirational encouragement. Manmana, think of me. Bhavamad Bhakta, become my devotee. Madhyaji, worship me. Mam Namaskuru, bow down to me. Mami Vaishashi Yukdvavam, in this way completely absorbed in me by practice of devotional service. Atmanam Matparayana, certainly you will come to me. And this all-important, most important instruction of Bhagavad Gita is again repeated in the 18th chapter. And in this way the 9th chapter concludes, and we are right in the heart of Bhagavad Gita. In our next lesson we'll be carrying on with the 10th chapter, and we'll see that Krishna carries on. There's hardly any interruption in this presentation to Arjuna here. Ananda Bhakti. In this chapter, the Raja Guja Jog was described, the most confidential knowledge, the great souls, the Mahatmas, and their symptoms, how they're performing Ananda Bhakti compared to others. The demigod worship, Krishna actually explains his real feelings about demigod worship, Avidi Purva. And then in the concluding verses of the chapter, Krishna explains the special facilities, the special way he reciprocates with those who are performing Ananda Bhakti. And this is the most confidential knowledge. In the 10th chapter, Krishna carries on to explain how the Ananda Bhakta, how the devotee can worship him and can conceive of him with his various manifestations of opulences. Let us conclude with this comment from Srila Prabhupada. Simply go and preach this very thing. Krishna says, Manmana bhavamad bhakta madhyaji mam namaskuru. This is Krishna's desire. Preach to the world. Just be Krishna conscious. Manmana, just become Krishna's devotee. Manmana bhavamad bhakta madhyaji, just worship me. Madhyaji mam, offer your obeisances to Krishna. 4 words, then you become a preacher. It's not very difficult to become a preacher and to become a spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.